This program is brought to you by realestate.com.au. Keep moving with Australia's #1 address in property.
It's great to have your company here on Business Now. Let's take you around the country over the weekend and look at the health of our housing markets nationally. 2,417 auctions, but look at the clearance rate, a fairly modest 53.8%. In Sydney, if we have a look there, 955 auctions, but just a little over half of those were sold, so that clearance rate well down. Melbourne did just a little better, 899 auctions, and you can see just under 60% of those were completed. In Brisbane, 94 auctions, but have a look there, less than half of them were sold. Adelaide remains the most robust market in the country, 88 auctions, and 3/4 of those were sold. In Canberra, 64 auctions, and the clearance rate there was 64.1%. So let's bring in here Angus, more senior economist with REA Group. Angus, explain that softness in the market for me, will you? I mean, is that simply there's more houses hitting the market, or is it that the buyers are starting to get a little tired of really these very high prices?
Look, it's potentially both, but I think a big part of the story is the fact we are just seeing incredible auction volumes and really, kind of incredible activity broadly this spring. It's been a very busy spring. Number of properties hitting market is really very high at the moment.
Okay, so let's stop there, because normally a seller hits the market because they're putting in a profit, they're cashing in a profit, or they're moving to another property. They'd be reasons. Investors generally, if they think prices are high, they might sit there and think, I'll get out of this hot market now and cut a bit of debt. So what's your own sense of the motivations for so many sellers hitting the market right now?
I think we're probably seeing all three of those things happen, which is perhaps the classic economist answer of having three arms. What we're seeing is, the fact that the market is good is probably encouraging a lot of people that want to move home being able to do so. One of the constraints if you're looking to move home is, well, if there's nothing listed for sale, there's nothing for me to buy, so I'm not going to sell either. And so we're kind of seeing that cycle go where vendors are a bit more confident, that's giving buyers more choice, and that's kind of cycling through. But we are also seeing the fact that there's an enormous increase in home prices over the last 5 years at this point. And that means a lot of vendors and people that are looking to sell now are sitting on an enormous cushion of equity that they're using to upgrade.
Okay, so let's say, for example, Go, because it compounds week after week. We were saying there are 955 auctions in Sydney and around half of them were sold. So if we get another 955 this week, there's not only maybe half of those that will sell, but there's still the ones from this week that are still sitting on the market. So there's a compounding number of houses in Melbourne and Sydney in particular that are sitting on the market waiting to be sold right now.
Yeah, we are starting to see it take a bit longer to sell homes, not just in Sydney and Melbourne, that's kind of happening around much of the country at the moment. It's not a huge tick up, a few days over the past 6 months or so, but it is longer than what we have been seeing, which is consistent with the fact that we're seeing just a lot of properties on market at the moment. There is a lot more choice for buyers, and so things are maybe not quite as competitive as they have been at some points over the past few years.
So supply and demand tells me if that's the circumstances, prices should be going down. Is that the case?
Not nationally. We are seeing prices down a little bit in Melbourne. Sydney, they're still up. Nationally, they're still going up. But we are seeing the pace of growth start to slow. Prices are certainly not growing as quickly at the moment as we were seeing, say, earlier in the year. That's probably partly a function of the fact that there is a bit more choice for buyers. It's not quite as competitive. That's putting some downward pressure. But it's also the fact that, affordability is very challenging. Interest rates are very high. We've been saying that for 2-3 years.
But then if you go to the government's own plan, 1.2 million houses in the next 5 years, that ain't going to happen, because if the housing market's now getting softer and it's harder to sell a home, developers won't build.
Well, we're seeing that in the data as well. It's not just on the demand for new homes, it's also on the cost of supplying them. It is enormously more expensive to build homes today than it was pre-pandemic. It's continuing to get more expensive. Construction costs in terms of raw materials are at least not growing as quickly as they used to, but they are far higher than they were pre-pandemic, but labour costs are still going up a lot.
I'll tell you what, always good to have you on the program, Angus. We'll have a longer chat down the track. Many thanks for your time today.
Pleasure, thanks for having me.
Angus, more there.